everyone. Welcome today to speak with us, to reflect with us on a very specific topic. Actually, I'm Mariachiara Tirinzoni. I'm part of the Connecting Women in Digital thematic working group 4. I'm thanking all the people from the project for the fantastic discussion we had during our working meetings. And thanks to Rasa and to Dorina and to the organization to let us discuss also this specific topic. So we are talking about VR. We are talking about immersive realities, and we are talking about a specific topic. Immersive reality, as the rest of the world, needs to be safe, to be inclusive, to be ethically grounded. And there are specific projects that are going on through Europe to ensure this, to study the phenomenon, for example, of harassment in the virtual worlds. And this is why we invited Michele Barbier, that I thank so much to be here. Michele, she's one of the project leaders, project manager of the Meta 2 project that aims to understand and to tackle the phenomenon of harassment in virtual worlds through the reflection on how we can design a safer space and how we can be better designers for that. The project is ongoing and it's a very interesting project. I had the chance to get to know in the last months. So I'm leaving the stage to Michele. And again, thank you for being here. Thank you also to Lydia and to the other members of Meta 2 project.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mariachiara. Do you see my screen? Is it okay?
Yes.
Okay, so just we'd like to thank the organizer, and I'm very happy to share our thoughts because it's a project, European project, wider project dedicated to the transfer of knowledge and technology for investigating gender-based inappropriate social interaction. So we have 3 partners. The coordinator is the NKUA in Greece. INRIA is a partner I am from INRIA, and IDIBAPS in Barcelona. So in short, it's about fighting inappropriate behavior in social VR environments. So I'm not a manager, but I'm more taking care of all the ethical approach. And the idea is really to go inside and to go further and to provide developers with some reflection on the way how they design the different tools for this social environment. So what I will present to you is really the ethical design, psychological safety, and Meta 2 project approach to understand and mitigate harassment in immersive virtual environment. You know the metaverse, I guess, and this is a slide from Mel Slater. I don't know if the Meta is still the big company, but it's still present. It's a worldwide, persistent, permanent, immersive digital world in which we live our lives. So it can be used for entertainment, for work and meeting, for education, for commerce, and you have a much more potential application. We can imagine that in the future it will be developed further, technically further developed, and we can imagine a future social VR platform where the physics, behavior of the environment and avatars are fully integrated. So it's not only a physical representation, it's really this full embodiment and physical purpose. So there's a lot of promise. The benefits, of course, it fosters the creativity, the connection, it reduces need to travel, it breaks boundaries of the nation state, and improve education and training. But there are also some risks. It's also because you are wearing different types of glasses, so it's also about surveillance, manipulation, control. It's about, if you spend too much time on it, it's about blurring reality and virtual reality. There's also a lot of security threats and also this risk of addiction and long-term exposure. So it's not only it's a growing social infrastructure because it's not only used for gamers or for networking, it's also used in mental health treatment and intervention, And because embodied avatars, synchronous voice, shared virtual space can create unique, powerful social experiences. And it's quite interesting to see how it can be used in medicine. But there is also the shadow side of it, is this risk of this immersive situation really intensify the risk of harassment. So it's really an issue, and we have collected a lot of different um, real cases where they are referring to harassment. And it goes also further because it's against, and again, the sexual violence can be observed in the metaverse. And it's quite impressive. And also, these people have just proposed the concept of meta rape because it did happen. And what is very, very bad, because this virtual experience hits harder or the same way than in the real world. So it means that this synchronous voice, the body tracking, this physical co-presence make the harassment feel more real than text or screen home platforms. So the psychological effect is the same than in real life. So it's quite urgent that we take care of these big issues. There are different types of harms. It can be verbal, it can be physical, or even environmental. We know there is a disproportionate impact because women and marginalized users are the most the most identified target, and there is also potentially some harm on the bystander. And witnesses and harassment can also have an emotional impact. So as I said, women and gender minorities, LGBTQI, AI, IA users, but also we can have some racism with racialized minorities, ethnicities. It can be also for when used during mental health treatment. These patient can be also particularly, especially vulnerable. So we have really to take care of all these different use cases and these different types of harm. So it does exist some safety tool on site. So a safety tool is an interaction technique that modulates social interaction between multiple actors with the purpose of avoiding or mitigating the impact of inappropriate social interaction. So you can have this proxemics, intimacy proxemics. That means you cannot allow someone to come closer to you. You can have also some specific dedicated social space where only invited friends can come. You can have also some tag about the friends. This person is a friend, is a trusted user, or is just a visitor. So this is also a way to identify who are your friends and who is a new user that may, have an inappropriate behavior. It can be, so this is the boundary settings, the proactive, but you have also some quick reaction. There is this option to be able to mute and to block someone that is harassing you. There is also a safety gesture option to, to control the person who is harassing you. And you can also, in some environment, report on inappropriate behavior. But there's current safety responses which are already in place. They are not homogeneous. They are fragmented. Some safety mechanism activate after harms has already occurred. So it's better to think ahead of this situation. So, for example, an ad hoc changes such as a new bubble, a mute button, or AI-powered abuse detection are rarely evaluated comprehensively or grounded in behavioral theory. And it seems also that all the different platforms are proposing different type of safety tools. So the Meta 2 approach is really to look into two specific studies. The first one is about the safety mechanism prototyping. This is a work done at INRIA to indeed test different safety mechanisms consent-based interaction, and human AI collaborative moderation. While the second study is more about the behavioral and emotional impact in order to see what kind of scenarios and if we vary the avatar self-similarity, if we vary the modality of harassment and intensity, the presence or not of AI agent, if we can measure some different emotional impacts. So the overall research objectives is really to explore the protective, the effective regulatory interaction mechanism, to design interaction techniques to cope with inappropriate behavior, to implement and evaluate techniques also through controlled user studies, and to design guidelines for use for safer, more empowering virtual interaction. So let's start with the safety mechanism prototyping. So at INRIA, one of our colleagues, a PhD student, is really working on this, how the perception between the people who send with harassing and the people receiving the harassment are perceived. So Arthur has developed a new taxonomy, a novel characterization framework for designing this inappropriate behavior. And together with NKUA, they develop a joint Unity-based experimentation platform in order to test this. The second study that is led by EDBAPS about the emotional impact is based on the bystander behavior in the metaverse. And it follows this golden rule embodiment paradigm that says you should not do to others what you would not want others to do to you. Because this team has done some work, previous work, where they were the people in real life who were harassing others. They would put them in a situation, they were changing their avatar and being in the situation where they are harassed. So it's a mechanism, emotional mechanism to let them know that what they are doing is wrong and how it feels to be harassed and what can be considered as harassment. So it's really interesting. And in our study, they have developed different types of experimental scenarios and just recreating this the type of avatars during an interviews, during different kind of situations. So just the preliminary results of their study is that participants report significant differences in presence, embodiment, and social perception across conditions. So it validates the paradigm before proceeding to the main outcome analysis. So it's really this type of environment, the situation, the scenario, the how we are similar to the real life, how what type of situation we are facing is really reflecting the potential emotional and psychological impact. So there was one thing we had to face in Meta 2 per se, because we are putting participants in order to evaluate, to work on our study, we had to put participants in this harassment situation. So it's also this paradox between how far can we go for harassing a participant who is volunteering to participate versus what we want to receive, to obtain as an information. So this is the main question. So to be able to answer this, we set up an ethics advisory board who really help us, and we have different partners, different person, different discipline participating in this project. We have computer scientists, but also psychologists, philosophers, digital law jurists who are joining, giving us their impact. There is also some activity of community engagement before running an exercise or before running an experiment. We have this co-design. For example, if you want to have LGBTQIA response, maybe to co-design with them what type of avatar can be acceptable to avoid stereotypical or non-representative character. And then we have this safety tool taxonomy that we are developing at INRIA. So you see, we are trying to tackle some ethical questions. This is why we a small group of people met in Barcelona very recently. This is where Mariachiara was participating, and the idea was really to think about how we can develop a robust assessment framework for the new tool designed to mitigate inappropriate behavior in VR environments. So it's really a brainstorming. It's really a group trying to define this multi-layered anti-harassment matrix in order to help the designer to better consider what potential impact would have, for example, the type of avatar he will design or the type of safety tool. So we are really trying to build, this is very recent, but this is trying to make a bridge between the technical safeguards, the ethical governance, and the motivational design. And we choose 3 main discussions to focus on. How is the avatar design and embodiment can influence or know the risk of harassment? How the environment also, how it is designed or the scenario is favoring or not harassment, and how this interaction between 2 avatars, 2 entities can be controlled and can be designed. So at the moment, this is where we are. So we are just a working group. You see, it was really a brainstorming exercise, but we hope by the end of the project, so which is in April 2026, we'll be able to share our thoughts and to give you some more information at that time. So I was fast. Like this, we have time for discussion. Thank you.
Okay, like a first day webinar speaker, I was speaking with my Microsoft my mic in mute. So thank you, Michele. So as you saw, this project can touch very different points. And so I want to introduce also my contribution to the project, because this is something that stays in between the work of our intersectionality thematic group and a philosophical and ethical approach to this kind of topics. So I'll try to share my screen. Seems to work. Yes. So what's the point? What we see, what we saw also in the presentation that Michele just gave us in the project is that when we get in touch with a technology, with any kind of technology actually, we are not just getting in touch with a specific tool. We are not just using a phone. We are not just using a VR headset. We are not just entering a social network. We are entering something bigger, because actually technology, exactly like art, in fact, is human. It's an expression of what we are. So it's very complicated if you say that technology is neutral because it's just a tool. It's actually richer. It's actually full with what our backgrounds are made of. Technology is an artifact. Okay, we have single objects, but these artifacts, they come with a loaded background. They incorporate the way we think, our politics, our geography, the social constructs that we give for granted, the cultural biases we have with us all the time. Also in the work of the thematic group, we explored so many different dimensions of these biases that can influence in different ways the access of women to the digital environment, but also the access to different kind of population. Then technology is, of course, made as a product. So it incorporates also business goals from the company, from the companies that make it, that create and design that. And from a psychological and philosophical point of view, what we can say is that technology embeds affordances. Affordance is the word we can use, we can describe as the invitations that objects have inside them. For example, if I have a mug like this, the invitation is here. You know, the way it's designed invites us to use this object in a specific way. So like this or like this. On a much more complex level, this happens with all the artifacts, with all technology. And this invitation comes from what we think, from what we are used to do, from what we think is the right thing to do. This is why we cannot say technology is neutral, because it's human and we are never neutral. It's not a case that it's not random that at this moment, many big institutions, even the Catholic Church, for example, are reflecting on the new technologies. In that case, in this specific case, it was artificial intelligence, but all technology carry the same level of weight in terms of biases, ideas, concept, backgrounds. And it's not just that, because technology expresses us also when we use it. So when we decide what kind of technology we are using, we choose the needs we are focusing on, what we want to resolve and what we don't want to solve. We have intention in producing technologies. We have goals. We have different levels of ideas about what should happen when we use a technology, when we enter the metaverse, when we use VR glasses, when we use artificial intelligence. We have intention in deploying technologies. Deployment is a very specific moment. It's the moment where humanity, in the broader sense of the term, all our communities come in touch with some new technology. So it's the point of meeting at some point between all the actors of technology. And this is the starting point to see what consequences we are going to see from this technology on. And we have intention as users. How do we use technology? How do we think about technology? In the metaverse, we see that there are many people that come into the metaverse just to meet other people, and they just behave in the same way they will behave outside the metaverse. But there are also people who use this technology in a different way, who come into the metaverse with different behaviors, with different ideas about what they are allowed or not allowed to do, or about what is good or not good to do. So we see that in the background, so behind the technology, we have a very wide span of diverse topics, diverse ideas, diverse beliefs, and so on. At the same time, when we design technology, we need standards. And something that I'm going on sharing a lot recently with my colleagues, researcher, and so on, is the fact that I learned recently that the word standard have different etymologies. So there are different hypotheses about where does it work, this word come from. A fascinating one is that standards come from standardo, from the same root of standardo or standard, so the flag. And the standard is a specific kind of flag. It's the flag you put into the battlefield when you want to call all the troops or the people on the battlefield to come together. It's something that is born of emergency. You decide a specific point, not because it's the best, it's the most central or whatever, but because in the emergency, you need to call everyone in a specific point. And if you think about this battlefield and this flag, what happens? You have people come there, and so there are people that are very close to this flag, and then people around and around and around, and we have different different position of the people. There are people that are much closer, and there are people that are far away from this flag. And the people that are far away are, of course, the most exposed to the battlefield. And I think this is a very fascinating metaphor we can think about if we think about standards, because on the one hand, we need standard because control design works by comparison through to a standard. It works, we need the uniformity of our test objects to understand if something works or not, because we have something that we define as working and many other things that are defined as not working or not yet working, at least. So we need to force this identity. We need to force a definition to create a standard. And this standard for sure comes from a decision. If it comes from a decision, like every other part of technology, it comes from humanity, and humanity have many different ways to think about what is good, what is less good, what is better, what is worse. So it's not neutral itself. And those who don't meet the standard are less protected in the situation. The technology is somehow less designed for this kind of people that are farther from the standard. But more, actually, there are only degree of deviation from the standard because no one is exactly like this ideal profile that we call the standard. We can see that in many different aspects of technology and of science. Think about medicine, think about leadership, think about training. You can think about many different topics, and you will see that, of course, we need some structure to compare our progress to. But at the same point, this structure cannot become a gate, cannot become a cage. So design also needs diversity. And why do we need diversity? Exactly, it's not a typo, exactly for the same reasons, for the same reason we need a standard. We need a standard, but a standard needs a specific type of individual, and no specific type of individual can represent everyone. The standard is needed, but it's not neutral. So we need to take into consideration different situations, different aspects. Also, when we were working in the workshop that Michele mentioned before, we had to reflect on different standpoints for design, for the experience of the individuals, and for the interpersonal experiences, because they determine very different consequences. So how can we keep standards and the specificity and diversity together? We have a very useful tool with us. It's asymmetry. Asymmetry can be an ethical tool in the sense that can help us making the right questions, not the answers, the questions. And asymmetry itself is asymmetrical because it's ambiguous. Asymmetry can cause bad consequences, but it also can cause good consequences. We can have informational asymmetry because often it happens that someone doesn't know exactly the same amount of information that someone else knows. This can be sometimes useful because we need it. But if we are aware of that, we can try to devise new strategies to reach everyone with the right information they need. Asymmetry can be moral, and it is. We live in a morally asymmetrical world because of our backgrounds. So not everyone thinks about the same kind of values. Even if we have the same set of values, even if we believe in the same set of values, then this set can be rearranged in a dynamic way, in different ways, because it often depends on the situation. It often depends on the individual perspective. We also live in a world where the asymmetry is truly ontological in the sense that the very nature of ourself differentiate ourselves as individual from the other people. The other, this is a word, I use the capital letter because this is used like this also from in the psychological and psychoanalytical literature, for example. It's something that is already there, and it's he or she or they stay there even if I'm not there. So they precede us, they exceed us. The diversity between myself and the other is greater than what I can understand individual by individual. And then, of course, I think it's clear that we can experience asymmetry of power. This is also the reason why, for example, in virtual worlds, there are different players, different actors that can behave in different way, and that they believe that they are allowed to behave in different way. So, seems problematic, no? But if we understand the asymmetry, if we know we can stand the asymmetry, if we know that when we put our flag in the battlefield, this flag is not always in the same position, then we can understand the complexity. Then we know that we need a bigger, a wider approach. The intersectional one is a perfect example of this because it tries to comprehend any kind of complexity. Oops, sorry, someone is trying to call me. And this idea of the flag applies also to our own identity, because our own identity can become something different depending on the battlefield. For example, there are compromises that we are making in a specific field. They are not compromising in different fields. And actually, since we understand, exactly because we understand asymmetry, then we can create something different. If everything was symmetrical, if everything was okay, then no one would feel the need to change. So innovation is basically driven by the awareness of asymmetry. And how can we how can we work on this asymmetry? There's a philosophical tool that I really like to share with you. We have many different definitions, but I think it's so fascinating that we have this powerful tool, and this powerful tool is not law, is not moral, is not better understanding in a rational way. It's imagination. We are all endowed with the capacity to imagine ourselves in other people's shoes. We can train this capacity. Many philosophers, many moral philosophers, many philosophers that work also in training and pedagogy thought about this. If you think about theater, if you think about Greek theater, if you think about stories, we are all conveying different standpoints on reality through imagination. So we have, for example, John Dewey that said in the 30s that if we need to make moral decision, we need to imagine ourselves in the situation, or we need to imagine the consequences of what we are doing. So moral deliberation is a rehearsal, like the theater rehearsal of possibility. Iris Murdoch, she speaks about the loving attention we need to have to individual reality, but this loving attention is not just, okay, I understand you, I appreciate you. It's I can decide things because I nurture this attention towards you. And through this attention, I can imagine that my decision will have consequences also on you. Or Mark Johnson, who says that imagination is necessarily, from a cognitive, from a psychological standpoint, to become good at moral reasoning. And finally, Martha Nussbaum. These are just some of the examples of the philosophers and theorists that are using moral imagination as a concept. Says that narration, that seeing ourselves as the public of events and as the readers of the stories we are seeing around us, is a civic competence. This has to do with politics, not just with individual moral. It's a matter of public responsibility. If we want to create a public discourse on justice, on equity, on diversity, on inclusion, then we need to develop in ourselves this ability to imagine different situations. And this is also what we were trying to do during our thematic working group, because we met and discussed every single dimension of diversity, every single dimension of intersectionality, and try to understand what is happening, but also in trying to understand what is happening, trying to imagine what else we can do. So why we need, in my opinion, an ethical approach to designing technologies, to entering technologies? Exactly because we need to understand how complex it is to use and to design and to enter technology. And to understand that, we don't need answers yet, we need questions. We need to train ourselves to ask questions. And the word ethics, it's very interesting because it doesn't speak actually about morals. It speaks about what kind of person I'm going to become, what habit I'm going to take for myself when I decide to act in a way or in another way. It's not about rule, it's about dimensions, it's about the direction, it's about what I want to take into consideration. And so we can actually ask ourselves very different questions. I wanted to use the same question I shared in Barcelona during the workshop, just to show you how diversity can be understood through philosophical questions. These are actually real philosophical concepts, so not usually used for understanding technology, but actually if you think about Kant, if you think about the infamous categorical imperative, then the question is, am I treating other humans as ends and not just as means? Are we going to use people, or are we going to work with people, understand people, serve people? The idea that our knowledge doesn't come from nothing, it always comes from what is already there, that our flags are put in a battlefield where everyone is already there. And the kind of battlefield we are choosing depends on where we are. And so the idea, I just want, so this is my last word. The idea I think we can take with us is to try and be more imaginative about what we are going to decide when we enter and when we design technology. So this is it. Thank you very much. And I think we can open the field for some questions, if there are any. Everyone has fainted from when I mentioned Kant, everyone flies away.
Oh, but I really enjoyed your presentation. I think you gave something similar in Barcelona, but philosophy, we always need several layers for getting all the words. But it's really interesting because actually this is what we did in Barcelona. We invited the different people with different background in order to start from, you know, the whiteboard in order to create. And what is also interesting is to always have a non-expert person, which always ask naive questions. This force the experts, whatever is their field, to go into to question themselves about the real comprehension about this information they can share, and it's really very interesting. Thank you.
Yes, this approach, I think it's taking into consideration other perspectives requires very different levels of awareness. And so I believe that what is going on with Meta2 project and what is going on with the thematic working groups of Connecting Women in Digital are exactly in this direction. So I'm very happy to collaborate with both the group. So
I will intervene if nobody asks questions.
Maybe there is something in the chat.
Yes,
no, they are just presenting themselves. Okay.
No, they were just saying hi when I asked where they are from. I wanted to say that I enjoyed both your presentations, and I have a question for Michele regarding the anti-harassment matrix. So is that ready? If we go to the website, I listen to you, but if we go to the website, we can. So what are the next step for the updates? And Mariachiara, your presentation was very, very interesting. I think you touched on a lot of points on the human side and the flag. I think everything was very interesting. And also then I'm going to see how are you with the outputs of the thematic working group? Will this come out as an official output of this thematic working group of the Connecting Women in Digital Forum? Because we are already working on updating the website with the outputs for the other two thematic working groups that started much earlier. So they had almost 1 year. I know you started later. So I'm curious to know whether what you talked about is going to be included in these outputs.
Yeah, I start first. So we just started this working group in Meta2 last month. The idea is to come out with a sort of matrix, because I'm an ethics expert, and for me there is no label, not for the ethics. There are maybe different dimensions that can be taken into consideration. So it's also, I gave the leadership to students, PhD students and postdocs, in order to help them also to organize how things will come. So we need first to define the final format of this matrix. We need to define the primary target would be the developers, but then after, I think we can extract some key information for policymakers and for the industry, for the big companies. So nothing is on the website right now. It will come out when we will be able. We define at the moment, we are agreeing on definition of terms, because as we are coming from different communities, the first thing to do is to have a common glossary. And I think it's really, really important. So we'll share with you as soon we share with the network, the working group in Women Digital, as soon as we have something tangible.
Just to add, our deliverable is planned for next spring. So we have a lot of work to do until then. We have to combine expertise from computer science, from psychology, from ethics, philosophers, and hopefully derive in a white paper that has actionable strategies, recommendations on research integrity that refer to ethical practices, gender equality in a more useful and tangible way for the scientific community to use.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. So I don't know if Michele, were you adding something?
No, I just say thank you, Lydia. But
Perfect. So if no one has any question, I think we can say bye to everyone.
Yeah. No, just I have a remark. So first, maybe you can give us your answer regarding the outcome of the working group on women in digital. And then I wanted to highlight the fact that in the big industries, big companies, they are hiring more and more philosophers, not only computational scientists, but also philosophers. So they are actually DeepMind has different, and I just uploaded yesterday a lot of papers about this integration of ethical and philosophical dimension into the design. So it's something also interesting to see how it can really influence on the strategy.
Yes, I think the role of philosophy in this moment, in this historical moment, is very interesting, because it's like I think every field, especially the emerging technology field, they understand we need different perspectives, and usually the training that philosophers go through when they study is actually to learn to assume different perspective, and this is very useful. And I think the most useful thing will be like one part of my research is to try and define some kind of shared language between all the actors of innovation, from engineers to philosophers, because through education also, because I think this is the way we can do technology for the good, in a simple word. Only if we understand all these flags and we know what these flags on the battlefield are, we can transform the battlefield in a different kind of field, hopefully. And for the thematic working group 4, we are working on so the most interesting effort, in my opinion, within that group, is to take all the dimension of intersectionality into consideration. Intersectionality as a method is something that has been explored for the last years. It's not so. It's traditionally linked to specific feminist issues. It's actually a very useful tool in any case. Of course, in my opinion, intersectional feminism is like the way, because it's the only mindset that can help us see a fuller picture. I don't have the ambition to see the whole picture, because that will require us to have, like, I don't know, eyes everywhere to understand that. But of course, what we are going through in the discussions of the thematic working group is how can we explore the different dimension, how, I don't know, geography, ethnicity, maternity, age are going to cross each other's roads, in which moments during the life of, in this case, of women in technology, and how can we think about different kind of tools to overcome the problems that comes from this complexity, all the way without forgetting the complexity. So during our meeting, I'm also the one that raises a hand and speaks for 10 minutes about no, but that we need this, we need this, we need also, because I'm Italian, I use the hands a lot like this, and I'm not sure if everyone understands, and I'm not sure how can we use this in the report at the end. Maybe they will put a GIF of me doing something like this with them. So we'll see in October what happens.
Okay, if I may just add a few words based on your thoughts. So not only when we design project for innovation, thinking about European funded project, not only we need to have this social dimension, the stakeholders engagement, having the end user also in the loop in order to get their feedback, but also to question, specifically if we are in the medical field, if what we propose as a new tool for innovation, is it adapted to women? Because we know the huge difference in the human physiology between man and woman. So I think in this kind of work package to be integrated in the future of this perception, to have something very more focused on social philosophy, ethical, and this kind of societal question. I think that would be very useful for any type of innovation.
Yes, also because sometimes innovation needs very, let's say, very focused roles. And of course, if you need to be super focused, sometimes you lose the...
You forgot, yeah.
Yeah, you lose the other things. And intersectionality is a very useful approach from a theoretical point of view and from a practical point of view, because it allows you to have a method to take more things into consideration, if not all, because sometimes it's not, of course, possible. I think we explored the topic as far as we could in this webinar. So, of course, I invite everyone to connect with us wherever, on LinkedIn, on our Discord channel, on, I don't know, emails, or through our leaders of the two different communities to check in and to know how it goes. And I don't know if, Dorina, you have anything to add?
No, I just wanted to thank you all and to ask if there are no further questions. We are not so Swiss in the sense, if there are questions, we can still take a couple of minutes. If not, I want to really thank you and to invite all of you to check what we do at the Connecting Women in Digital, not only the forum, but also the entire project. And if you have ideas or suggestions, or you are interested in presenting your findings within one of our future webinars, just get in touch with us. And thank you again.
So have a nice day, everyone, and thank you for being here.
Bye-bye.